we really want to get down to what are the policy issues that you see, where do you stand on them, what do you bring to the table? You know, and I think, so we are missing Lori? Okay. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll start with you, Deanna, and we'll just work backwards. Okay, and I really want to, you know, kind of what you bring to the table, you know, and what are your issues that we should be concerned about?
Do you want a formal introduction, or do you just want, no, just...
You know, I mean, if you want to bring some expertise that you think bears on your candidacy, that's fine, but, you know, just keep it to a minute. I just want to kind of know, overview, what are the key things I should know.
Okay. I think the key issues in Danville currently are preserving our open space. There's quite a bit of discussion about development. We are pretty much at the max for development, but there are still opportunities for projects to go through, and we need to really look at how those will impact the future, and not just financially, but aesthetically as well. And I think safety and security for the residents and the businesses is a key issue. Maintaining the level of services that we have currently, making sure that they aren't compromised based on budget issues or the state of the economy.
And okay, so you've given me the overview. What are your stands on those said positions?
Well, I think all projects need to be looked at, especially development projects need to be really looked at and see how they affect the residents, what types of measures are in place, or what types of policies already exist to limit negative development or unwanted development in areas, and see how they look at all sides of the conversations or all sides of the issue, and try to come up with a solution that works for everybody. You can't make everyone happy, but minimizing the negatives, surely. And as far as safety goes, and the police department, I'm personally affected by things that have happened recently with the police. So I think maintaining the level of service, making sure that we don't compromise.
Okay. Jim?
Okay. Well, this is a first for me, because up until now, everybody's wanted to know why you want to run. And
why you want to run?
Yeah, right. So I finally got that question down, and now nobody wants to know. So, well, I've been a businessman. Well, I've had my own business for 10 years. I've been in business for 35 years. I've never had a whole lot of time.
Doing what?
Oh, I have my own business, which is a distribution business. We sell packaging and promotional products.
Okay.
And you guys need more signs, I can sell you signs. I think there are two issues that have come up that I'm hanging my hat on. One of them, I think we have mutual people here that have the same feeling about the McGee Ranch project. I think that is questionable whether we should proceed with that without a vote. And then the second one that I have is the influence that agencies like ABAG have on the town of Danville. And I think that what ABAG is doing to a town like Danville is not right. Danville is pretty much grown to the point where we don't have a whole lot of flexibility to high density housing. It's just not right for Danville. So those are the two issues I'm hanging my hat on.
Renee?
Good afternoon. My name is Renee Morgan. I've been a Danville Planning Commissioner for over 8 years. I've also been a Heritage Resource Commissioner, and as well as Historic Design Review. In those 8 years, I've had the opportunity to strengthen our hillside ordinances, to maintain our scenic hillsides, and also to strengthen our heritage guidelines. I also am serving my third term as a school site council member, which gives me a unique perspective on our children's educational needs as well as their requirements. My guidelines as far as what I look for the town of Danville, we have been doing a lot of things right. There are areas that can always be strengthened. There are areas that are opportunity sites that are located in Danville that I'd like to see, make sure that we're having opportunity to renovate and take care of. I have also would like to make sure that we strengthen our schools and making sure that we make the money go to our school districts. At the same time, I would like to make sure that we maintain the quality of the town that we currently live in and the quality of life that we have.
You want to make sure you strengthen our schools and what?
The quality of life that we currently have in Danville, maintaining that quality of life and maintaining our history and heritage resource.
Okay, so why aren't you running for the school board?
Well, I'm a school site counselor, which means that I'm on my third term voted in by the actual school to represent the parents on
I know,
school
but I
site
guess what I'm saying
council.
is, if you're running on a platform of strengthening our schools, why aren't you running for school board?
That's part of my platform for running for council. It's part of making the city a strong town. One of the reasons that I moved to Danville originally was because of the school system. I have a 24-year-old daughter that's gone through the school system, and I currently have a 9-year-old son who's currently enrolled, so that's very important to me.
Okay, let me ask you again. So why aren't you running for school board?
Because I want to be a town council member. Because
Okay.
I
Then
have these are all the
what-
prerequisites that make a town council and make you have the best decisions
Okay.
able to make
Okay.
decisions for the town of Danville.
Okay. Bob?
Good afternoon. I'm Bob Nealis, a retired business executive from Dryer Strand Ice Cream, where I spent 26 years. I'm a 32-year resident of Danville, and I have 0 planning commission experience. I'll tell you that right now. But I'm running because I've got 2 fundamental issues with the town as I see it today. First and foremost, back in the year 2000, clearly passed by an overwhelming majority of the Danville voters was a measure called Measure S. Measure S essentially existed and was passed by the voters of Danville to allow the voters to have a right to vote if and when open space agricultural land that was deemed that way under the general plan was to be redesignated, or the general plan therefore amended, the voters had a right to stand in. Well, apparently there's some loopholes in that Measure S, as it was originally written, and the present town council has seen fit to step through those loopholes and approve developments, or at least one that I know of today. It's called the Elworthy Ranch development on the west side of San Ramon Valley Boulevard. And that's very disconcerting to me, particularly when in our 11 square miles of space, and as our general plan essentially validates, our 2010 general plan validates, we're effectively built out anyway. So you have to ask yourself why the present town council sees fit to circumvent that particular measure, at least in terms of the spirit of it, with respect to allowing the voters to have a say in whether or not they want to see continued erosion of our
So you think
open
that
space.
they should have they should be able to have a say, and are we talking about McGee Ranch, or are we talking about Elworthy? I'm confused.
I'm talking about what's transpired with Elworthy clearly tells me that the present town council is effectively saying that as they consider other proposals, they're likely to proceed in precisely the same fashion and circumvent the voters' right to have a position on whether these continued changes and encroachments on our agricultural land will continue to happen. The second fundamental, you said 2 issues, the second fundamental issue has to do with just the deplorable situation, as I see it as a resident, that exists with the Danville Hotel. Here's a business project that sits in the center of our town, and we have a town motto that says small town environment, high quality of life. We have a building that is so dilapidated it belongs in a deserted town somewhere. Not only is it an eyesore, it's an attractive nuisance. And for whatever reason, under the leadership of the town to date, it sits as it sits. So my hope and my objective in running for town council is to get the stakeholders at the table and see what we need to do to get that project.
Okay, so what did you do? I'm sorry, what did you do for Dryers?
I was a senior executive with the company. I ran our international business. I was there 26 years, and when it was 26 years ago, it was a $20 million company, and I left, it was $3.2 billion, so there was a little bit of growth during that time.
You were there through the takeover or the acquisition?
By Nestle?
Yeah.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Mike?
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Doyle. I'm a retired private investigator. I also have a California general contractor's license and a private investigator's license. My first job in Danville was in 1952, pumping gas on the corner of Harts Avenue and Diablo Road. I was stationed in Germany. They sent me out to Pleasanton to open up a Air Force basic training base. I met a lot of people in Danville. They got me a job as a part-time service station attendant. One of the men told me that I should take some of that money I'm making and buy some property. I did. And I raised my 5 children here. 8 of my grandchildren are being raised here. My wife was a teacher in the district for over 40 years. She retired from there, and now she's working 4 days a week at St. Isidore's.
So what are your positions?
I have a vested interest in this town because I want to continue. I'm serving on the Danville Town Council for the past 22 years. I represented the town in the California League of Cities, the East Bay Division, which encompasses the 19 cities in Costa County and the 13 cities in Alameda County. I serve on the board of directors for 18 years of the League of California Cities, which represents 482 or 83 cities. My main concern about Danville and the way the things are going in Sacramento is that we maintain our fiscal stability without the interference from the state ballot with their ATM machine. Anytime they feel like it, they raid our coffers. I am here. I want to continue protecting our town coffer, our town financial structure, and I will tell the people that I've done that religiously for the past 22 years, and I will do it again for the next 4. Thank you.
Do you want to address some of the issues that some of the other candidates have raised, especially
as far as building the what is going to be built or what has been built, I believe that everybody has an opportunity to present their case. We don't make a decision whether to stop a development before it starts. Everybody has a right to be heard. My position is I hear both sides of the stories and then I make a decision. I don't make a decision before anything is presented. I listen to both sides and from there I make a decision. I've never made a decision based on what people think of before it begins or after it ends. I make my own decision. I'm not influenced by anyone. I make my own decision after hearing everybody's side of the story, and I believe that is the honest way to do it, and that is the ethical way to do it.
No?
Well, Newell Irons, Mayor in Danville. Big policy issues, there are 2. One is related to our finances, our tenure, outlook, how to balance revenues we get, probably compared to most cities. We spend
something compared to other cities. I lost the word.
Sorry. Compared to other cities,
yeah.
We spend less than $600 per resident to provide the services that we do. We provide all services with the exception of fire. San Ramon spends about $1,200, Pleasanton too. I mean, you look at the numbers, we have so little revenue that every decision we make counts. There's no room for errors. Going forward, our challenge is how to balance that limited revenue, keep our high quality of services. We use a contracting model that has done really well. It is a challenge though going forward, and it'll be interesting to hear what other people think, how we'll approach that. The second thing is our business community. We've spent the past 4 years in one of the worst economies that we've seen for most of us in our lifetime. The solutions we came up with worked really well. The problem is they're not necessarily the same lessons going forward. Our sales tax now, like most cities, peaked in 2007. We are now above that. And we're one of the few cities that have done that. People stay in Danville. We have a fairly healthy downtown. But Danville's built out. You know, we're got a couple of people who live near a project that may or may not come to us. The past 10 years, the census shows we added 30 people per year, about 300 people in 10 years. The next 10 years, likely to be the same thing. Our general plan predicted that. We are built out. We have very high standards. Danville Hotel, to go back to that was owned by the IRS for about 12 years. A local family bought it. It was a little bit bigger project than they can take on. They took another family in with them, 2 local companies. We worked through the design process. Project was approved, one of the few projects that people came out and supported. We had a redevelopment agency. We offered them some financial incentives. They said we can do it on our own. And then January 2009 came along, and they have been chasing financing. And we have helped them more ways than you can imagine. They now have a commitment they're going to start, according to their financing and their bank, in March next year. It's a project that everybody wants to see happen, and I can't believe the amount of time that I think we've all put in to make it. And thank goodness that they've been able to hold on to it financially.
We are gonna, since time is precious here to all you guys, and I don't want to keep you here all day, let's focus on two key issues, sort of where we approach this, so to speak, okay? On the one hand, is I want to go around and I want to hear all you address this. You guys have managed to avoid some financial pitfalls that other cities have gotten drawn into. And I'd like to hear from all the candidates your feelings about the approach that's been taken in the over time, and where you see it going, and what your philosophy would be in approaching things. Two is, and they're distinct projects and distinct issues, but I want to understand your approach to future growth, your approach to how the public process should work with the McGee Ranch project, and also then where you guys see the city going, frankly. And I'm still trying to read the tea leaves on this with the new farm proposal, and the new farm proposal, and where this, what role, if any, the city should have in that, and how they should be approaching it. Because clearly you guys will have some sort of an influential role, the city will have some sort of influential role in that. So let's start, and I'm just going to move across and back. My apologies for the people on the end, but it's just like, unless my notes are going to go crazy. But let's start with you, Newell, on the financial. Where do you see the philosophy what has been the philosophy as you sat on the council? Where do you see it going? Where do you want to see it go?
Philosophy has been, most people don't know this, that we do a contract model for a lot of our services. If you look at the total number of employees we had back in the 90s, we're a little bit less than we were in the early 90s than we are today. The contract model says hire management staff, try to contract out the sort of services that fit that criteria. For example, maintenance, we go out to competitive bid. So in the downturn in the economy, we were able to ride those costs in a downward motion and get a bigger bang for our buck. Our contract model also applies to our police services. It's the most expensive area. We spend $8 million out of a $20 million general fund on that. It is, going forward, something that we have studied now since I've been on the council. We've studied twice to look at the.
You've been on the council since when, remind me?
95.
Okay.
So is it valid in how we're doing it? We're spending almost $213,000 an officer, full load, everything in. Pluses and minuses to that. The study shows we can almost do it a little bit less, but you got to balance the risks and the liabilities that go along with having your own police force. We'll probably look at it again in another 2 years, but the reality right now, it makes great sense to do that. We also have a high standard where
The
risks of liability, officer involved, incident, officer gets, our contract is whatever happens to the officer, the county's wholly responsible for that. So if there's something an officer's involved with, we're sued over that, we're relieved of that. So we're paying a price, but we're also getting a benefit. The other thing is that if as we go forward, those rising costs will now, as you know, Dan, are going to start to balance a little bit. We've had a huge amount of officers that retired. We have a lot of younger ones. The younger ones are coming to us under the new contract. But we also have a standard where people in our community, they see an officer and they make a stop. You know, right now we have the ability, if that officer doesn't have the right attitude, one phone call and they're gone. No hard feelings, you're out. You know, when you have, as you know, if you have an employee that's been there vested, it's a challenge to retrain that people and try to repurpose them. So it's kind of balanced as our community has grown. But going forward, it's one of our bigger challenges in terms of cost. But the contract model has served us well. It also goes all the way to our retirement. As you know, we're only one of 3 cities, I believe, in Northern California. I think all 3 of those cities are in Contra, Costa County. We have a 401k system. Our employees participate to the maximum. We as employers participate to the maximum. We have no post-retirement costs. And the question is, does that serve us well? Absolutely, it served us well. The part of the problem is that we do have employees that have worked for us who have put the absolute maximum in. They're approaching 70, and they can't afford to retire. And the reason for that is the law says, you know, the federal government says, well, we don't want you putting all your money away because we want the tax money today. We don't want to wait for it. So there needs to be some balance as everybody and employers are all looking to go to these. We got to work out a way that we can put more money in there so it actually works. But it has served us well. That's why we've got $10 million in cash reserves against our general fund, and why we don't have or solve the problems that everybody else has.
Do you guys have capital debt?
The only capital debt was in the former redevelopment agency, which is what its purpose is. We personally do not have any debt.
Well,
So
you
all
personally don't, but
I mean,
the city.
The city, the town does not have any debt. I mean,
God, I didn't know that's what it took when you ran for city council.
No. I wish I didn't have debt. The town has no debt on its own. No.
Okay, Mike?
In 1982, when the town was incorporated, our city fathers made it a policy that we've been adhering to ever since, that we would put a certain amount of money away each and every year in case there was a bump in the road. We did that religiously. We're doing it religiously. Finally, there was a little bump in the road a couple of years ago, and we've been able to sustain the bump in the road by continuing offering the citizens of Danville what they deserve and what they expect. The continuation of grand service, it has been flat for the past couple of years, but we have maintained this quality of life that people expect out of the citizens of Danville who move there for that reason. So I am very proud of the fact that we have maintained this tradition of maintaining this reserve, and I would say that we could maintain it, or maintain the level of service right now for the next 4 or 5 years without batting an eyelash. We've done a few things. We've done a few things by subbing things out to different people, getting grants, getting things, but we have not raised anything. We never bought anything in the past 22 years that we didn't have the money for. We built a library. We built that, no money out. We didn't owe a darn thing. We just built a vets hall that is going to help, going to serve the veterans, which I am a veteran, and a senior citizen. And it is serving both. $8 million, $5 million, $5.5 million was from this town, and $3 million is being generated by local citizens to contribute to it. Each and every month, maybe a couple times a month or a year, or a couple of months, they come with a check for $150,000, $200,000. I am very, very proud of that fact that this is a community event. One of the big things that I am very, very proud of, that I started or helped start the K-9 unit in our police department. That is strictly funded by citizens. The chief of police came to me one day and said, we're thinking about getting a dog, but it costs $25,000. I made a phone call, 2 people said they would buy the dog, $25,000. We were putting on the demonstration one Sunday with the dog, and the guy drove up in a car, got the dog out of the car, and the car broke down. Just started flaming, and like it was on cue. So there was a couple of people there, and I said, you know what, fellas, we need a new car for this dog because he can't be riding around. So 2 of them were bidded who was going to contribute the most. So $50,000 was raised in about 2 minutes to buy Donna, at that time Donna, our dog, a new fancy residence. That is funded by strictly citizens participating in the community. And we have that a lot in Danville because people want to contribute back to the community. We have a lot of reserves. We have many people work in our city for the police department. We wouldn't be able to run the city if we didn't have all our volunteers, because that's what we rely upon. We don't have to go out and hire other people and go in deep debt. Again, we never buy a stamp unless we have the money. We don't get $4 in and spend $5 as most of our cities. Being on the League of California Cities, I know, on the board of directors, I know there are a lot of cities in California. We just saw 4 or 5 of them now that are declared bankruptcy, and a lot of them are on the verge of bankruptcy. I just heard the other day that Fairfield might be thinking
Yeah,
of
okay,
next.
yeah.
And
I'm well aware of all that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So it is essential to us, the town council, to maintain this vigilance about over our budget, over our financial security of not only this town, but also everybody else around them. We have to watch to see what they're doing to make sure that mistakes they make does not affect us.
Bob?
Yes.
One of, I basically developed 3 platform pieces when I decided to get into this fray. And the second one was focused on maintaining the sound financial policies and oversight that this town council has, in my opinion, done a very good job in. I know I took issue in my first response on some other areas.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Okay, but in the case of the financial side of the house, from my business background in doing my research, when you look at the annual budget, which I include both capital funds and revenues together, it's $33, $34 million a year on that range. You look at the reserves that the town has been able to salt away over the years. You look at their very conservative sort of management style of decision-making. Mike alluded to it in his comments. There's little doubt that the financial state of affairs in Danville, having gone through what it had gone through in the last 3 or 4 years, is in very, very good shape. So the town should be proud of that. It's important not to rest on our laurels. It's important to kind of maintain that level of conservatism, be prudent about our financial decisions going forward, and manage the house accordingly.
Okay.
So, does that help you?
That helps.
All right.
Renee?
Financially, I believe the same. I believe that Danville has shown its sustainability, and in the 10-year forecast, we show that we are sustainably sound in that sense. I do believe in placing the competitive bids out, and that we need to think outside the box going forward. The way of communicating has to be different in the sense that we need to start using more of the email processing and getting competitive bids placed on websites and so forth. Keeping our police force contracted is a very important part. Also, I believe that we need to also learn how to maintain what we have with less and giving our residents more for what they expect. The other thing is one of our big things is our housing taxes, our property taxes that we receive. Danville, as has been mentioned several times, is almost completely built out, but we do have opportunity sites, and we need to look at those and make sure that we're utilizing that.
Okay, let me see if I understand what
Okay.
you're saying, because you just threw something in. that
I
was
did.
sort-
I kind of threw it all over there.
Yeah, and what I want to understand is, are you suggesting that new property taxes should be looked at as a way to strengthen the budget?
No, I did not say that.
From new development?
No, I did not
Okay,
say that.
okay.
Okay.
I was just trying to
My
understand.
comment, I appreciate
Okay,
you clarifying that. My comment was more so in the sense that our tax revenues come from housing taxes,
Mhm,
property
right.
taxes. And therefore, because of that, in the economic times that we're facing, we need to make sure that we are looking at our opportunity sites and renovations and so forth, making Danville a place where people want to put their businesses. They want to come and move into these homes so that we sustain the amount of money that we're spending as far as people coming into homes and maintaining our level of integrity in our homes and our businesses.
Okay. I just wanted, we all agree that generally, correct me if I'm wrong, that when
Somebody
someone-
says taxes.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that generally new development taxes do not necessarily pay their way,
Right,
right?
They do not.
right.
Does anyone disagree with that? Okay, I mean, that's not the way that you maintain necessarily your fiscal stability, right?
Well, true, in the sense that what I was referring to is maintaining our, what we have so far as a reserve in the town of Danville, maintaining that reserve by looking outside the box, trying to be more creative in a more fiscally challenging time.
Okay, I just wanted because what you said earlier, I didn't want it to get misinterpreted.
I appreciate you doing that, thank you.
Okay. Jim?
Well, I think I'll be a lot briefer. I think that the town has done a great job. The reserves are in great shape. They're very conservative, which I would be as well. I would follow the same policy that exists, and I do suspect that the economy might still get a little worse in the next year or two. In my business, I see a little bit of a downturn this past year that doesn't necessarily hit the papers, but my business tends to see things before they do start hitting the government reports. So I suspect things are going to get a little tougher, and the state will probably want to grab a little more money. So anyway, I would continue a conservative policy, and other than that, I think the town has done a great job.
Yeah.
I agree. I think the town's done an excellent job of managing the money. I think there's definitely room for new ideas or like Renee was saying, thinking outside the box, definitely sending things out for competitive bids, especially when the economy is not doing so well. Then there's a chance to really ride those in the downward way and save money there. I totally agree with the conservative attitude and saving today and not spending every dime that comes in, making sure you're ready in case something does happen or some unforeseen challenges arise.
Okay. So it doesn't sound like anybody has a real problem with where the finances have gone, and nobody's saying that it should go in a different direction. Did I hear that kind of unanimity in the room?
Consensus, yes.
So then I guess we move on to growth and development. Okay, let's start with you, Deanna, and let's split it out and let's talk about McGee Ranch and its implications first. Where are you on this? What do you think should happen?
Well, I have not been part of the mass discussions. I know what I've read in the newspaper, what I've read on some different websites and looked at, but I don't know that it's my place to make a general statement about my feeling without knowing all the facts. I don't think I can make that decision at this moment based on, there's a clear opposition and there's clear pro for the project. So without knowing all of the details involved and all the other nuances, I really would rather not make a.
Fair enough. Jim?
Well, I know that the environmental impact report has still not come in, still being written up. And I also understand from discussions with Newell that the property owners have the right to pursue their development. And it is up to the town to make a decision whether they can or cannot proceed. But I have read Measure S a few times, and I don't know, to me, to not, if the town should approve the project, I don't see how the citizens or the voters of Danville would not get the opportunity to vote on it. I've read it, and to me, if they don't get to vote on it, somehow it's legalese getting around the measure, but the spirit of S is to protect those hillsides and agricultural areas. So the other concern obviously is coming down Diablo or up Diablo. That it's a very narrow road, so there's obviously going to have to be some widening of it for anybody to add more traffic to
Okay,
that.
since I haven't gone back and read Measure S, what specifically does Measure S say that leads you to, and this isn't a trick question, I'm asking, what is in it that you see
Well,
and I will go back and read Measure S.
yeah.
What does it say specifically?
Well, it specifically says that if the town changes the usage or the zoning from agricultural to residential, that the voters or the citizens of Danville get to vote. And it's pretty plain and simple. That's what it says. Now, I understand that there are things like density, what is it?
Transfer.
Density transfer that comes into play here. Essentially, you're taking property that could be developed over the hills, say one home per 5 acres or one home per 20 acres, and essentially you take those 400 acres, you condense it down to a lower area, and I understand that. But I think that it's skirting how Measure S was written.
Okay, but the issue, the whole property is currently zoned agriculture?
It has an agricultural use, it has an overlay zoning of 1 unit for every 5 acres. So they have a vested right. They don't even need our approval to come in and start. They can do a map for 5 acre lots. They can do that. That's their vested right. Measure S really says if you cannot give a agricultural land any more right than it already has. Most of Danville developed because you took all those ag lands and somebody says, yeah, I got 1 unit, 5 acres, 1 to 20. I now want 5 units to the acre.
Remind me, it's how big a parcel?
About 500 acres.
And so the issue is a density transfer?
They're proposing 70 houses. And to not build over the 600-foot elevation, to build on about 8 acres.
And it's 500 acres?
It's approximately 500 acres, and then take the other 490 acres and dedicate that to open space to East Bay Regional Park System, which will link with the Sycamore.
So your point being that it's 70 times 5, 350 acres, they meet their vested rights now.
Correct. Elworthy was the same kind of thing.
Pardon?
Elworthy Ranch was similar.
Okay, we'll come to,
Back
back to you, Jim.
I'm just saying it's legalese. The voters,
I don't know, I mean-
when we voted for Measure S, and I was one of them, we voted that if something is going to cross the line and agricultural zoning is going to change, that we get to vote on it.
So your point is because it's a density transfer, you're effectively changing it from agriculture.
The density transfer I just see as legalese. The reality is, even though they have the right to build one house every 5 acres, they're not going to do it. I mean, they might build some, but they're not going to build an entire 500
Okay,
acres.
and they're going to build the 70 houses on how many acres?
About 8, maybe 9.
It's not necessary, I don't look at it as necessarily a bad deal. I mean, to get all that, to be able to maintain all that land is a pretty nice solution. However, I still go back to what the intent of this was, and the people that bought their homes in there were understood that it would not be developed. So to now say, well, we have this little way we can change things, I don't think that's right for the people.
So since you you have sort of become the judge here, or the
Thanks.
arbiter, or
Yeah.
whatever. So, Jim raises an interesting issue. People who presumably live near these 8 acres were only expecting at most a couple houses there.
Well, they would have 5. You could build 100 houses there. They could walk in the door and start pulling permits. They have that right.
No. But on the 8 acres in particular, in other words, it's one thing to say to somebody, "Oh, you're just going to have these ranchettes sprawling over the, and I assume this is one of these same deals where a lot of the land is really not developable because we know a lot of the land in this area is pretty rough, right?"
This is actually pretty. They
Is it pretty- okay.
can make more money doing the 5 acre lots.
Okay, so I guess my point is, though, for the people who live near those 8 acres, they must be feeling a little bit like, wait a minute, that's not the deal we were in. We were told this land here will be developed, within the 8 acres right next to us, maybe a couple houses. and it may sprawl for miles, but we're
Our-
not gonna have this massive
Our general
density.
plan actually says what's being proposed is what they have to do. It's always been that way.
Your
So it's
general-
nothing new. Our general plan, the 2010 general plan, it says you're not going to build, first of all, because of the ridge line, you're not going to build over 600-foot elevation. You're going to do density transfers. And Danville, for the past 25, 30 years, was all developed on the idea of preserving the open space and being, environmentally smart and building on making the smallest footprint possible and to build it. Danville evolved that way. And our general plan reinforced that. So they're coming in with not something they necessarily want to do. It's what everybody in the neighborhood, Bob lives contiguous to the property. Jim lives over in Greenbrook, which was a project done way before Danville was incorporated. But the same concept is preserve the open space. And Danville's, name another city around that's got 40% open space. Name another place that you can take 500 acres and do that. So there's nothing new in that. Measure S was put on there by us, the council. We put it on a campaign for it. Everybody has the right to try to interpret something, but the words are the words. It's being upheld and used exactly what it was intended. That property, they thought they were going to get before Measure S. They could have come to us and fought and probably figured out how to put 10 times as many houses on there. That's what everybody else did. Measure S prevented that. So their vested right can never get any greater without the population voting.
Bob, you seem to have a strong feeling on this. Do you want to weigh in?
Sure. It's interesting that we're sort of having a quasi-council meeting in the spirit of an interview process.
Welcome to the council race. Yeah.
But the Newell's point is an interesting one. The words are the words. You talk about a political statement that really leaves you wondering what that actually means. There's absolutely little doubt that in the year 2000, when the concept of Measure S and the specific measure itself, irrespective of who wrote it, was passed by a 3-to-1 majority. That's huge. The voters in the year 2000 were saying, we want to weigh in. We can talk about anything else you want other than that, but the concept and the spirit of that was clear. There's also no doubt that in the case of the Elworthy Ranch project, precisely what Measure S was designed to allow people to vote on was ignored, almost frankly with impunity, from my standpoint. And so what you have is, it's interesting that we're discussing a foregone conclusion of a second development, which is yet to even be certified by an EIR, and which is yet to even come before the town council for a vote. So it sounds clear to me that we have very predetermined ideas of precisely how that second development is likely to go. And that's precisely why I'm sitting in this race. Thank you.
Mike, you want to weigh in?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, God, yes.
Only Mike in the room.
Oh, please, I was thinking, this is discussion about something that's not even, just being talked about. And for
It's more than just being talked about. We've got an EIR that should have been done 2 months ago, right?
Well, it takes time.
I mean, we're
to
more
do.
than just being talked about.
Well, they made a change, so that's
They-
what it's
they-
on.
Right.
They've come in and changed certain things, so in each change, it makes that process take a little longer.
Okay, but the issue is this something that the residents should have a chance to weigh in on or not?
Well,
May I have an opinion also?
Yeah, you will
Chance?
give- yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
How can you weigh in on something if we don't know what they're building? We don't know what it's going to be. They haven't brought anything to us yet. And before it gets to us, it's going to go through a process that most builders would not even think of doing. I know a lot of builders don't even like to come near Danville because our rules and regulations.
Okay, but Mike, here's
Wait.
Okay.
Let me tell you, that in order to get this project off the ground, and before it gets really involved, we're going to have input from everybody. There's going to be many public sessions. They're going to have a chance to speak their piece. We're not sitting here saying it's a pre-gone or foregone conclusion, and I resent that. No, it is not, as far as I'm concerned, a foregone conclusion. I've been intimidated, or I tried to be intimidated by a group of their people that came down to me at the farmer's market, and one man said, "Why?"
Mike, I want to ask a real specific question.
Yes, okay, please.
Okay, a real specific question.
Yes.
Is it your opinion that this project is a project that should go before the voters or not a project?
It is a project, in my opinion, that has a right, the owner has a right to start a project. We have a right to listen to them. If we didn't listen to them, they could take us to court, and then we wouldn't have any say at all in it. They could build as many houses as they want out there, because a judge would say, this is it. Fortunately, that the town of Danville and the builders and the owners work together, because they all know that if they do, it's going to be a win-win situation, not only for the builder, but for the residents around it and for the town. And that is what we, the representatives of the town of Danville on our Parks Commission and on our Danville Town Council and our Planning Commission, all of the people involved with our town have one thing in common. We may not agree on everything, but we agree on one thing, the betterment of Danville and the residents of Danville that we serve.
Okay, Mike, I never heard an answer to my question.
Yes, sir.
My question was, is this a project that should go before a vote, before the voters?
The project has, again, it's like saying, I want to buy a brand new car. Okay, you have to have money to buy it. It has to be presented to everybody before it can go before the voters. You can't all of a sudden say we don't want it. The man has every right to do what he wants.
I don't think anybody's saying they don't want it. I don't think that's what they're saying.
Oh, you haven't heard some of them.
Well, some may be, but that's not what I've heard in this room.
No, but I'm saying
Okay.
this is what we, the town council, have been putting up with
Okay.
for the past couple of months. They called me at home and wanted me to get them an opinion right now. I refused to do that. I told the man I wouldn't do that. It was my mother calling me.
Renee?
I'm not going to do it.
Having sat with Danville on the planning commission, as a Danville planning commissioner, and the commissions that I've sat on, Danville upholds a very high quality and very high standards for any application that's placed before us. I have not had privy to the information other than having emails that have gone back and forth. We have not seen this application come before us, and it could be withdrawn. It could be put on the application. I do not know. All I can tell you is that for my years on the planning commission and on the commissions that I've sat on, Danville upholds very high standards, and every single aspect of this application will be reviewed if and when it comes before us to make a decision on it.
Jim? On the ballot? Not on the ballot.
Well, only if the council should approve it.
If they should approve it, should it go on the ballot?
Yes.
Okay. Deanna?
Same question.
Same question.
I think all parties need to be heard, so if it was to move forward, yes, it should go.
Should go on the ballot. No. Yes or no?
It's not an option for either of us to make a decision should it go on the ballot. You write an ordinance, pass it, we put it out to the people, said if you ask for more entitlement, project goes through to get approved, the only way it can be finalized is go to a vote of the people. Thus far, from what I've seen, they've not asked for any entitlement. They've asked for less than their legal entitlement. Therefore, it's not up to us to put it on the ballot. You don't have that choice. If the property owner came in and said, I want more than my entitlement, they know it goes to a ballot. That's out of our hands, and it has to go to a ballot. You
So the
can't-
density transfer per se is not grounds, you're saying?
No, and our general plan speaks to that as clear as can be.
Well, the general plan came after 2002.
No, the general plan was in place. It was a 2010 general plan. We did it in '99.
Okay.
Came out with this. This solidified that agricultural lands can't get any more entitlement than which they already had at that point in time. So thus far, both Elworthy and this did not ask for more entitlements. Previous projects did. There were applications that did. They went away. They did not, though there was a 200 and something unit project proposed on Elworthy, and it went away.
That went away so fast. make your head swim. Because the
Okay.
town council said no.
So, Mike, you wanna just give me a yes, no on the question I was asking?
I agree with no, the people are entitled to what they're entitled to. We cannot arbitrarily say we're gonna put it on the ballot or not put it on the ballot. It is written already in our general plan.
So you're saying you cannot put it on the ballot?
No.
Not based on what they've done.
It is not.
Okay. Let's see, Bob,
Yes.
does it have to go on the ballot? Should it, can they put it on the ballot?
Well, for this November ballot?
No, obviously not.
A ballot?
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely it should. You know,
Everybody's spoken, I just wanna make sure I understand. No, no, yes, no.
It cannot go on a ballot
Not
at this
based on
point in
what they've
time,
asked.
not based on what they're
The
asking.
question is, should it?
No, it can't.
It's kind of like driving
I
a
mean,
car,
it should.
get
Okay,
a ticket or not.
yes,
Follow the rules.
yes, 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 no, no, no. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyone want to disagree with my very gross summation?
Are you
there?
calling for a motion?
No, I'm not calling for a
Because I'll be
motion,
happy to give you
because
one.
we'd obviously end up with a 3-3 tie, and that's not gonna help us here. Besides which, I don't think this is the form in which this is gonna get decided. Okay. Okay, so then the next question is, more finesse, it's a more finesse question. And let's start with you, Deanna. What should the city do, and now when it comes to New Farm? The unincorporated Tassajara Valley development that sits on your borders that you guys were asked to weigh in on. The city was asked to weigh in on, and it's still sitting out there hanging.
I'm not familiar with the details of that.
Okay. Fair enough.
Well, this is where communicating with the county and San Ramon and making sure that whatever they do is obviously going to impact us and our streets, schools, whatever. So there's not a whole lot that, that I understand that we can do, but communicating our concerns and trying to get them to make their development so that it impacts Danville as little as possible is the only thing we can do. Am I right? No, I don't.
Okay.
You have to wait.
Renee?
Anything that impacts our urban limit lines needs to make sure that we are strongly involved in that and that we have an opinion in that. It affects our traffic, it affects our schooling, and it affects our residents.
So what should you do?
I believe that we should be very actively involved in that and knowing what's going on and making sure that we are involved in any decisions that being made for that particular area.
Okay. So should the city be taking a position on any farm? And what would it be?
Good question, and I would like to research that a little bit more because of the fact that in my career with the commission, we have now had the opportunity to really research that in extensiveness. But now that you brought that up, I definitely will look into it further. But at this point in time, I believe anytime you protect your urban limit lines and you make sure that the effect on your town isn't as great is important.
Okay.
I would almost reiterate what Renee said. I mean, as well, there's a lot of the details, I'm sure, about New Farm that we as regular people in Canada City are not yet really
You played a tangential role.
up to speed on. One, two, you manage what you can manage, and you manage what you can control. So, to the extent we're asked to take a position on it, of course we should take a position on it. Of course, the concerns have been articulated here already with respect to traffic and the sprawl effect, if you will. need to be considered, but what can Danville do legally or technically about it, other than have an opinion on it? I'm not sure.
Okay. Mike?
From day one, the town council, town manager, city attorney, we're all involved with New Farm because it's right on our border, and it is going to affect us. Anything that affects the town of Danville or its citizens, we, as a council, as a representatives of the citizens, have every right and obligation to be thoroughly versed on what is going to happen down there or outside our border.
Okay, well, we
Because-
sort of
wait,
know,
wait.
we sort of know what's gonna be proposed. What's your thoughts on what's gonna be
It,
proposed?
it has to be, we have to be in contact with the people who are proposing this, not only San Ramon, but also the builders, to make sure that they honor us or do something to protect our streets, our schools, or everything that is going to be affected by even one house down there, let alone many.
No?
You know, Danville's one of the few communities that has actually not only stood up and put our money where our mouth is, our residents expect us to do this. We have sued the developments that have been on East Danville that don't meet standards to us,
Right.
that are gonna impact us when they don't build schools, they don't build parks, and they build on hillsides where we don't do that. In New Farm, we have actually sat down with these folks to understand it. We have taken the defensive measure to LAFCO to expand our sphere of influence. Our EIR that we're doing for our new general plan right now is studying that to support that application. San Ramon had an idea of annexing all of that. We were unsure of what exactly their intentions were. They have a new council. Their intentions are much clearer that they do not want to develop that. It seemed to be before that they did. Our concern is that when the freeway backs up on 580 and 680, people coming from the valley, they come
The freeway
back
because of
toward-
additional traffic.
Use
from
our
the farm?
streets, right?
Well, not just New Farm, we're finding the traffic is coming that way on busy days when you have an intersection accident, 580, 680, people coming from Tracy come in the back way to Danville trying to get through towns. And New Farm is outside the urban limit line. As the mayor of Danville, I've just been working with Greenbelt Alliance, John Chapman, and I've just signed a document saying that I, as a mayor, as an elected official, will uphold the urban limit line, and I'm going to the mayor's conference to ask the other 18 mayors to do the same thing. We have more than enough land within our area, all of our general plan areas, to meet all the growth needs, even with ABAG projections within our communities. We do not need to build outside there. And the reason for not building outside the urban limit line, why we have to stand up firmly against these projects, is because it does impact us. It impacts our services. It's not designed in our general plan to support that type of development out there. Our road systems aren't designed for that.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Newell just said that we have more than enough land within our communities. We do not need to build outside the urban limit line. And he signed a document that he would uphold the urban limit line. Is there anyone who takes a different tact or position from that in this room?
With respect to New Farm.
With respect to the urban limit line, period. I didn't hear you limiting that to New Farm.
I mean, to anywhere in our county.
Is there anyone who who feels differently than that position? Does that represent everybody in the room?
It certainly represents me.
Yes.
It represents me, yes.
Yes?
Okay, obviously.
You've spoken.
Okay, so everybody agrees that they'll uphold the urban limit line. Then what I interpret that to mean is you will push for development within the urban limit line and resist opportunities to expand the urban limit line.
Yes.
I'm just asking, I'm just trying to understand where you guys are at on the urban limit line. Anything else that we've missed here in this hour here that I should have covered? I mean, fortunately you guys aren't one of these cities running off a fiscal cliff where I have to, figure out how you're running, what.
Thank God, that's
I was just saying, this is just a comment, and kind of all gotten to know each other. I think Danville is fortunate in the past few years that not only are we fiscally well managed in a responsible way, that I think we have all found that serving in the council is public service. And I think it's important that we all go with that spirit. It's not about, because you live next door to a piece of property. It's all gonna affect all of us at one time. You're gonna live next door to something. It really is in the spirit of trying to build the best community and do it for the right reasons. And I hope that in spirit, that's why we're all in this, to do that.
Let me ask you just a quick question on that, because one of your main concerns is that you've discussed here is this one project.
Mhm.
Yet if you live right next to it, you're not going to be able to vote on it, are you?
Well, I think that's subject to, there's a process that you can go through with FPPC, and you can appeal the basis upon which you might be able to participate.
Yeah, but have you looked into this?
In that decision, other than to understand the process. And I know that the city council is not the judge and jury.
Right, I understand that too,
process.
but
So
right.
I've only looked into to understand what might be available to me in terms of an avenue with respect to recusal or non-recusal. But this campaign is happening right now, and so this debate is happening right now, and I think that that's what's important. The council, as it sits today, is quick to point out that nothing's been approved yet. The council's quick to point out today that the EIR is yet to come to us. The council's quick to point out that we'll listen to everybody. I suspect that if they polled the moms driving up and down Danville Road on a school morning, that group hasn't been heard from yet with respect to that particular development. So, whether or not I actually have a seat on the council and a vote in that specific issue, this is not a one-issue campaign for me. I agree with what Newell just said. This is about, I'm a 32-year resident of this town. This is about preserving Danville as the jewel that it is in the San Ramon Valley. That's what's important to me. There's an issue that I take very seriously with respect to one particular development, two actually, one that's underway and one that may come for consideration. But there's far more to it than that. I've spent the last couple Saturdays at Farmers Market, and I can assure you that everybody has their number one issue.
Yeah, but you started out with this being your number one issue in our discussion here.
Yes.
And so I'm trying to understand here. Could it be that your number one issue, if you were to win, you're going to be sitting there not able to vote on it?
You won't be able to.
Well,
I don't mean
I
to be offensive,
appreciate-
it's sad. I can't vote on one item because I happen to be next to our PDA. To me, one of the most important things we're doing, and I can't even talk about
I
it.
appreciate Newell's advice, but the same gentleman told us that we couldn't tell anybody which party we were affiliated with in this role, which was contrary to the city attorney's advice and counsel. So I'll get my legal advice where the legal advice comes from. However, and you're right, I did come into this with sort of one particular issue that kind of got this ball rolling, but there are many more elements to being a city council member, and I think we're just scraping the surface of them. Yes, to focus on one issue is fine for the time being, but there's far more to the job in terms of managing the town, keeping an eye on the finances, and keeping Danville, preserving it in the quality of life that we have today. So I hope that makes sense.
The other day I had some visitors, and I take them around town, show them the different buildings, show them different things. And in one area,
You showed them the gas station.
Where he worked.
Uh-huh.
You remember that?
yes, but
Just checking.
The one thing was in one couple block area, there was two houses sold. And the guy said to me, I bet these for sale signs aren't these properties very long, are they? And I'm proud to say they're not, because people are buying these homes and then fixing them up, and it's a win-win situation. I got a guy that bought a house down the West End. He's gonna put $500,000 into it, so you can imagine what that's gonna do to the rest of the area. This build up, I mean, it's great. I call it Camelot. This is God's gift to man, really. And anybody who doesn't like this and wants to change, this is wrong. We have worked hard to keep it the way it is, and I believe in it, and that's the reason I'm running for another 4 years.
Let me
Thank
come
you.
back real quickly. I wanted to ask one question that Jim raised. Your comments about ABAC, I meant to circle back on that. Pretty much smack of NIMBYism in a certain sense. I mean, should Danville not have any affordable housing?
No, they certainly should. I just
I mean,
look
that's not what
at,
I heard from what you said. You know, I mean.
I think that Danville has done its fair share of low-income housing over the years. What I'm saying is that there are other cities that have not grown, or are still growing. Danville is not growing. So for year after year after year, for ABAG to be telling us to build more and more high-density units to accommodate their agenda, I think is just wrong for Danville.
You realize this is exactly the sort of thinking that just got Pleasanton in deep doo-doo.
Yes.
Well,
Sued by the state, they lost, they're now.
Well,
I mean,
that's
are
what
you
I'm
familiar with that?
saying. Yes, and I'm not
Okay.
saying that you take it to a point that you get sued over it. But I'm saying that if we can push back anywhere, we should. I think we're obligated to do that because unless the town agrees with the type of development that they're pushing for, I think we need to push back.
Does anyone want to weigh in and take the same position Jim takes on this?
I'll say what little I've learned
Okay.
about the process. ABAG, effectively, the Association of Bay Area Governments, is essentially a body that is implementing state law, okay? And so they're trying to funnel down on a 7-year plan every 7 years what the city by city expectations would be for low and moderate income housing. And Danville stepped up every year to say, look, we know where we have some spots where we could be in compliance, and that has allowed Danville to remain certified under the ABAG rules. The important part about that is twofold. One, you're not picking a fight with the state, which could be a very expensive and losing proposition apparently if Pleasanton is an arbiter. But you're lost my train of thought there, but you're allowed to, you're prepared if needed. Okay, let's put it that way. That's what the certification is all about. Oh, the second point is that ABAG apparently has a bit of an influence over the purse strings coming from California, the state down to the cities level, for non-compliance. So there can be some punitive reasons to, maintain your compliance position, and we've been able to do so since ABAG was formed in this process.
Sorry, I don't hear you taking Jim's position. Yeah, all right.
What I'm saying is, as I best understand the process, we participated in it, we've been in compliance with it, and it's important to do that to keep on good footing with respect to ABAG's influence over state funds that may or may not be coming your direction.
Anyone else?
I would just add that ABAG is made up of us. It's the electeds. It's all of the 9 Bay Area counties. It's a tough job that they have to do, but the fact is morally.
Are you on anything?
No,
Okay.
I used to be just a voting member, but
Are
not on
you?
the board.
No, but I'm not any longer.
Yeah, ABAG is the agency that we've all agreed to. We're kind of part of the creation of that. The point is, when we get our RENA numbers, our housing allocation, you know what, we've done it. We push back. Yeah, we push back because we think maybe the numbers are higher than they should be, but we want to make sure it's evenly balanced. But morally, my son just got married 3 weeks ago, and my daughter-in-law, and they want to live near us. We're so excited. Well, fortunately, we found a place. And by the way, we don't use the word with the LOW in it. We use affordable housing. And they're moving to Doherty Valley. And bless it, they got a unit for $1,200 because a 1-bedroom's $1,850 a month. They qualified for an affordable house against a whole long list of other people. In Danville, we have figured out how to do it. It does have to work for the community. It's like wearing a suit. You got to get the right fit so it feels comfortable. Our community has told us, people show up at meetings, there are sites that are not appropriate to do it, but we have went through systematically over the years. We were one of the first in Contra, Costa County to get our housing element approved by the State Department of Health. And you know what? That was hard to do. And we built 77 very low and low income senior housing We have an inclusionary housing, and Greenbrook, where you live, way before we came to town, has the best examples of affordable housing. And nobody complains about it because we don't have labels on it. But it has all the housing mix that you expect to see in it. It has townhomes, it has duplexes sitting on corners, small lot houses that sell for 60 cents on the dollar what the house next door sells for. You know, those are all the things we've done. Is it hard to do? Absolutely, it's
And
hard
the
to do.
average person doesn't know that about what's happening in Danville.
Right.
But
You
this
don't
is
know.
what
You
has been
would
done
not be able
by
to see.
the town council and by our planning department, by our staff, by everybody in compliance, as the word used, compliance with ABAG. And this drives them crazy because we do it. And they think we're sitting here not being able to do it, but we're the first city to jump right into the fray and do it. And we've got accommodations for doing that.
See, my concern is that as we lose flexibility, as we've maxed out our property, and the obligation to meet ABAG's requirements still keep coming into Danville, at some point, people are gonna start thinking 2-story, 3-story. How do we develop units to handle the requirement? And so I'm just saying, I don't want Danville to turn into a Dublin, San Ramon, like what
East
they've
Palo
done.
Alto.
I mean, I love Danville. I love what you guys have done over the years. I love the open space. That's why we moved here. Well, schools as well. But I love the open spaces, and what we've done to maintain the hillsides is fantastic. So I'm just looking not at the immediate requirements, but what might come down the road as they start pushing Danville to come up with more units. And I just don't think that-
Opportunity, remember, you mentioned build, we don't build. That's not our obligation. When we had a redevelopment agency, we had affordable housing, we could build. We have to make the opportunity for those to be there through zoning, and we gotta put them in the right areas. So we're not in the business of building houses. So they're not, to ABAG as a group, we don't go to each city and say, you gotta build these. You have to provide the opportunity.
But it does impact the development.
Sure it does, and it could, and that's
If
why the
someone
standards
wants
are
to
high.
develop, you say, okay, you can do that, but you need to put in some.
Within 20%.
That's where we have rules and regulations in Danville.
Folks, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Could you